I'm Mari Claire Dart.
I'm Sydney Tate.
I'm Elizabeth Manning.
And this is our video on our ecological footprints.
Enjoy! How did you reduce your ecological footprint?
I bought local produce instead of buying things at like J Street or a random supermarket, and I also made efforts to reduce my energy consumption by showering during the daytime so I didn't have to turn on bathroom lights and things like that.
For me, it was more of a conscious effort of watching how much I use. So in the second part of the project, with this reducing it for the 5 days, I was more aware of what I did so that I wouldn't use it for as long of a time period, and just being more aware of my surroundings and what I was doing.
I really try to focus on my electricity, and I tend to leave plugs in the walls when I'm not there, so I try to make a conscious effort of unplugging those and not charging my phone at night all the way through, or my computer all the way through.
So how successful were you guys, and what steps did you take to reduce your footprints?
I think I was really successful. I didn't really think, when we first started, I didn't really think that I had that big of an ecological footprint, because I'm really aware of my water consumption, and I'm a vegetarian, so, but like I said before, I really tried to cut back on the electricity, and so I think that was pretty successful. I think the biggest thing was being aware. I was more aware of everything I did, and the harder steps, it was hard at the beginning because you really had to be aware of everything you did, but so that was the hardest part, was the beginning.
I as well feel like I did somewhat have success in this because I was conscious of things, and it really made me think about how every day impact the environment. And some of the harder steps though were like when I had to use my computer for schoolwork. There's no way to get out of doing that. It's something that I have to do, so there was just no way to really change that.
For me, I thought I was successful in comparison to the first 5 days. Like, my reducing was pretty successful because I watched how much I consume, and just in the fact that, like, showers, I should not shower for 25 minutes, so a big reduction was the fact that I showered in 5 minutes. And other things, just like using the metro more often instead of zip cars and things like that.
Good. If everyone in the U.S. had your reduced footprint, would that be enough to reach sustainability?
For me, definitely not, because my initial thing was so high of usage for each thing that I feel like I came down to everyone else's level,
Yeah.
and so I feel like if they're starting out lower than me, then it'll be a bigger impact. Plus, everyone's circumstances are so different.
Mm-hmm. I just don't think that people are ready to do this at all on any level. It's a really big cultural shift that needs to happen, and I don't think that the U.S. is ready for that. And so it's hard for me to even think about this question, because I think that we're a long way off from that.
Yeah, definitely. I think it definitely takes more than just buying local produce and reducing times by like 10-15 minutes to actually make a change.
Yeah. Having consulted the websites for calculating your ecological footprint and having experimented with shifting the parameters for the calculation, do you think that your reduced footprint is a significant improvement?
I don't think it's a significant improvement, only because we're only doing this project for a short period of time, and I don't think my individual efforts are going to make enough difference in the long run. I think that it has to be a community effort and a global effort to make a bigger difference.
Definitely. Like, there are only so many things we could really control with our reduction that it really didn't change to a really large degree.
I have nothing more to add.
Also, I think, but on that before we change, we didn't calculate public spaces, which was a big thing.
Oh, right.
Right.
Oh, and yeah, so what is not being measured in the footprint assignment? That was a big thing, public
space and
places and things
Yeah.
like that,
Right.
yeah.
Also, like, I know for me, my dad's an airline pilot, so I fly for free, which is very nice. So I fly very frequently, at least 10 times a year, and that's a huge contribution to like my footprint that wasn't added in.
Right.
What will be some of the differences between an individual's footprint and a community's footprint? What do you guys think?
Well, a community's footprint, like we just talked about, includes public spaces and large amounts of just everything, like food, energy, water, the whole 9 yards, whereas our personal consumption is really, there's only so much we can control, so it's on a lot lower level.
Right. I think that going in a different direction, I think that if a community was to calculate their ecological footprint and to really make an effort, I think that would be huge. And it could be used as an example for other communities as well. So, I mean, I know that there are some communities who are doing that, and it's cool that they're getting the ball rolling, and I think that that would be a really cool thing to see in the future because that would make a huge impact on everyone's footprint.
I think a good example of that is GW and how we have a big green initiative and we do contests with the different residence halls, and I think that's a great example for other universities to start.
Is the footprint measurement important? Compare it to the carbon footprint or the water footprint or some more general notion of negative impact on the environment?
I think it's extremely important for people like myself who aren't aware and overuse things a lot, and now I'm so aware that I'm negatively impacting the environment because I'm taking so much, I'm using so much resources, and I can easily reduce that and not contribute to as much waste.
I think it's an important tool, but I don't think that it's an important tool to get people starting to think about what they need to improve on, and it gives them it kind of gives them an idea of how they can reduce it. But I think we really need to have some sort of cultural change. This isn't enough to actually like make a big enough change.
I think that compared to the other types of footprints like carbon water though, like ecological footprint really makes you realize that yeah, you could not drive your car, but you're also using like 10 sheets of paper every day, and like it makes you aware that there's just so much going on that you're wasting.
That's true. What would offset the footprint, or what would count as helpful to the environment?
I would say pretty much any sustainable efforts like composting, planting trees, recycling, the basic things are all like positive points back because you're helping the environment.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yes.
Contributing back to the environment.
What institutional changes would make it easier for you to reduce your footprint?
Having it not be a norm to own a car, maybe having more availability to park your bike somewhere so that it's really integrated into the community, that you don't drive, you ride your bike, you walk, and it's easier to do so. That would decrease exponentially the amount of carbon waste we have.
I agree with that, and also incentives for like government and also like corporations. Like if a corporation, like a water company, if you had like a lower water bill, then they would maybe give you like a break on your next one or something like that. And government incentives for like not driving your car. I don't know how they would calculate that.
Yeah, definitely.
I think that in places like universities where using a laptop constantly in class all the time and for assignments outside of class, we're constantly on this thing that uses so much energy. If we made it, you didn't have to have a laptop at school and there was computer labs available and you had to schedule times to use them, it would be easier to reduce as a whole as a community.
Did the reduction of your footprint use a technological fix?
For me, I'm on the cheerleading team, so once a week we take the athletic vans. They're these big white vans that we don't fill up with enough people, and we go all the way to Virginia. And so for the first 5 days, we did that, and then the second time I asked everyone if it would be okay if we took the metro for this project.
Wow.
And they were all very okay with it. Not really, they complained, but I guess using the metro is definitely a technological fix.
I commute, and so I ride the metro every day. And I live by AU, and I live with my family, and so they have LED lights. So I didn't really make huge changes. Wait. Okay. So, I mean, we were already doing that, but it was good to know, like, to be aware that.
At one point there was.
Yeah.
And I think definitely there could have been more of a technological fix, like if we had like the opportunity to change the appliances in our dorm room or something like that, but like just realistically that wasn't going to happen, but those options are there.
Yeah. And I think that's important to be aware of. Like this obviously let us become like more aware, but like also of the challenges of instituting change. Like it's really difficult because sometimes you can't.
It's definitely good that we know the technological fixes that are out there, because we all are at the age where in a few years we're going to be buying our first homes, our first apartments, that we're going to have to outfit with new appliances, and making sure we buy homes in areas where we can do transportation on a metro or a bus system.
That's true.
Did the reduction involve a cultural change in you guys?
I don't think so.
Not really for me.
I made a conscious effort to eat less meat for the second 5 days, so in a sense is going vegetarian. There's a cultural change big time, and I don't think I'll stick with it. I like hamburgers, but I don't eat that much meat to begin with, so it wasn't that difficult, but it was different.
It's difficult to make change within your like friend group because I felt like I was constantly nagging people. I do this anyways, but like I constantly am like, guys, shut off the lights, turn off the water, and people just get annoyed, and you have to find different ways, clever ways to like have them turn off the lights and like use less water.
Yeah, definitely. And like some things just people aren't willing to change. Like my roommates watch TV like 24/7. They would not shut it off if I begged them. So.
I think it's just the way our society is now and the norms that in our generation especially too we're so used to and accustomed to the way things are with how much energy used that it's going to be hard to get them to cut back.
Definitely.
Is it financially costly to reduce your footprint?
Yes.
Yeah, to begin with, especially like the big changes like appliances, and that's definitely a big one. Like solar paneling is extremely expensive. Energy Star appliances are much more expensive initially, but the outcome does lower it eventually.
Right. And well, for me, with buying local produce for the like 5 days that we're supposed to reduce it, like. To be honest, I'm not going to be able to keep doing that because it's a lot more money than I'm used to spending. So it's not sustainable to my life.
Yeah.
Does it compromise or improve your health to reduce your footprint?
I think it definitely improves your health because, as a personal example, I moved here from the Midwest, and so we drove everywhere there and here because it's a city, you walk everywhere or take the metro, public transportation. So I know when I moved here, I lost a little bit of weight because I was walking everywhere, and so it definitely improved my health. Yeah.
I think lowering the amount of like packaged foods that we eat is good for the environment and good for ourselves because we'll eat more vegetables, more fruits, which is definitely a better option than Oreos.
Definitely.
So we each have a question for each other. Who wants to start?
I can start. What are some negatives of calculating your footprint like this? Like, what does it not touch on, like, in our society? Or, like, we kind of talked about it a little bit.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't. It doesn't account for the amount of sheer waste we contribute to just by going to a university where there are constantly lights on and bellmen and food is being wasted because that's just how it is. Like, it's not specific to DW, it's everywhere. And we don't really account for that in this.
I would definitely say there's just big things that aren't factored in. It's like at least in this project that we did, because like, at basketball games, like how much food is wasted after concessions, and how much like energy are we wasting on lights just to watch a basketball game, like for sheer entertainment.
Yeah.
My question would be a little more silly, but how willing would you guys be to drastically change your water consumption by lowering the amount of times you shower to like twice a week?
No, thank you.
I mean, like, if you're working out, like,
That's just not.
No.
It's not gonna happen. I mean,
there are people out there
Yeah.
probably. We smell them in
well,
class.
I mean, okay, like for example, I spent 2 months on a boat in high school, and like you can't use water there. So it was a cultural thing there that we didn't shower every day, which is gross, but we weren't with people that did shower.
Yeah.
So, if I lived on a boat again, then fine, but...
Yeah, I would be more willing to lowering the amount of time I showered, not necessarily
the amount
the
of time.
Understandable.
Mine is kind of along the same lines of that. Would you be willing to make drastic life changes, like giving up your car completely or going through a winter without heat and just blankets, just to make a positive impact on the environment or reduce your negative one on the environment?
Yes, for the car. I mean, it depends on where you're living. People do that every day. I mean, when you're in the suburbs, people take transportation, but it's easier in the city, obviously. Living without heat, I don't think that is like customary. Like, that's not the norm. I don't think that would be the best way to lower your footprint.
It's kind of. My roommate would beg to differ. She doesn't like the heat on ever. We spend literally, I think it's like probably 60 degrees in my room right now. It's so cold. She leaves the air conditioning on, so we don't need a heater.
That's like the opposite of putting the air conditioning on, like when it's
just
winter.
It's terrible. I mean, I know that when I live at home, I live in Florida, and everything's pretty. You have to take the highway to get anywhere. So it would be really hard to give up a car at home, but definitely here, I don't need a car by any means. The metro, walking, everything's so close.
I think the question, like, the bigger question with that is, like, how comfortable are you to give up
essential things?
Yeah, and I don't think that people would want to do that. And, I mean, we're so used to living comfortable lives that I don't really think that people would be willing to do that. I mean, my family keeps the house pretty cold, so you have to put on layers. And that's kind of like what you were saying, which, I mean, it's inconvenient, and I don't think that Americans are used to being inconvenienced. So.
Definitely. I think as a society, we're not willing to cut back, and especially cars. Like, we are the biggest consumers of cars as Americans, and I don't see anytime soon people getting rid of their SUVs to hop on the metro.
Right.
Really.
Okay.
Well, this has been fun.
Okay.
Good job.